And I hope that life gives you every chance to win. And you are loved. And you are
Right, we've made it, everyone. We've made it with all the different time changes, clock changes, with one side of Australia, with David over in Perth, with Medyhne over near Sydney.
Well, sort of New South Wales, near the border of Queensland and New South Wales.
Yeah. And Brice in Atlanta and myself in the UK. So all different times, all things, but we've got here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to see how this goes with the talk. You all know the score now. So if we start talking about things that we're not really meant to talk about, then you will find all the links below in terms of how to watch it on our various different channels. So we'll try and be good with words, but if we make some slip ups, then you'll see the shorter version on YouTube and the full version on our other channels below. So how is everyone? We'll start with you, Brice. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's early here, but I love getting up early. So I was saying before we got on, I'll be careful how I say this. I'm super excited because there's a new documentary that's coming out in May about, we'll just say, the competition that happened here in the United States back in November of 2020. And I think it's going to absolutely take down the head of the CEO of the corporation, we'll say. It's talk about. So that's got to happen. And Charlie Ward said that's going to have to happen in order for everything across the world to have a domino effect. And so fingers crossed, this is it. So I can't wait to see the documentary. And it's going to focus a lot on Georgia because a lot of the cheating happened here in my state, in my county, actually, Fulton County. And so we're going to see a lot of proof of undeniable proof of,
tamperings.
Shenanigans, we'll say.
Isn't it fascinating? Don't you think, guys? It's so fascinating that it takes a movie to bring this out rather than legal investigations that are all whitewashed. I find that in this day and age, well, are we surprised? Perhaps not, but it is quite shocking from my point of view that it's going to take a movie to wake people up to that.
Yeah, and God bless the citizen journalists who have actually done the job that the we'll say the federal people should have been doing. I don't really care about what they're called, but they should have been doing that, and they didn't. So citizens figured it out and did it themselves and created a documentary. And so that gives me faith in humanity, because as we know, all of us representing different countries, it's the people that can end this. It's the people. If the people just stop complying, they can end this. That what they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. And so those in charge are not going to rectify this if it's not in their best interest to rectify this. And so the people, us, the humans, the 99%, it is in our best interest to rectify these things across the world. And so it gives me such faith in humanity that there are people out there that were patient enough. I think they said they had over like 400 million minutes of evidence from computer scans and stuff. Unbelievable that they sat through and went through everything, learned the law, studied the law, learned the law, and were able to then factually, not under, any type of assumptions or speculation, were able to factually show through this documentary where criminal proceedings should be taking place. And so that's, if this happens in the United States, I expect a chain reaction all over the world. So fingers crossed, and high five to those people who did this, because wow.
Yeah. And what about you, David? How are you doing? This is such exciting news. Something else Medyhne and I have both been watching this morning that we're going to talk about. Oh my God. How are you doing Perth? Because
overall, I'm pretty good. Yeah, it's been really strange. I was playing basketball this morning, only for about 20 to 30 minutes, and I just saw every 2 minutes there was a new plane going in the same direction. It's really odd. And I saw the same thing last week. I think I mentioned it to you, Brice. And there've been some loads, and this is just the time that I'm outside, you know, and even when I was going for my walk at lunchtime, still more planes going. So it's really strange. There's an abnormal amount of plane activity happening. I assume it's almost every day because I can still hear them, and I'm not outside, you know, for 8 hours a day. But I bet you if I was, I'd still see as many, well, if not more, in that time period. But overall, yeah, pretty good. We actually had some rain, which is so funny because we had forecasted rain last week. It didn't rain at all. Then all of a sudden it rained on Sunday, which wasn't forecasted, and then they forecasted rain for today. Today's Monday, isn't it? Tuesday. Yesterday, and that didn't happen either. So the weatherman's not really that good, but you know, at least we got some rain, and hopefully it's not going to turn into a drought like they were planning.
Yeah, wow. What about Medyhne? How's everything with you?
Oh, excellent. Very good. I just was blown away by this movie. I literally just got off when I came onto this call, and it's got water in the title. Am I allowed to say that? And it blew me away, the information in that. And I think every single person out there really should watch this movie because it has information in it that is key to everything that we've just gone through the past 2 years. And it also indicates the level of nefariousness that we're dealing with this, and with a lot of the hospitalization procedures and things like that. So I think that this is absolutely crucial, new bit of information for us all to learn from, and it has water in the title. So I think we can somehow, I don't know, put words across and get that out there. So, and the other thing, I had a dream with the name of the drug.
Right.
Okay, with REM in it. You know, that one. I had a dream, and they were saying, mention this, get that out there about this topic. So I had a dream about that, which is saying that I need to, you know, on my own social media platforms, try to get the message out there as well. So this is all relating to this incredible movie that's just been released. And I know that the interviewer, they tried to stop him from putting this movie out just in the last week as well. So that's how important it is for everyone to watch this movie. The other thing that I really want to share that's super exciting is I had a galactic experience with the ETs in the last week or a couple of weeks. And not only me, but it was fascinating because I'd like to share that with you as well. Shall I mention it now, or will we continue talking?
Well, can I just butt in about the other movie that Medyhne was in? Because I watched that this morning as well. And just before you jumped on, Medyhne, I was talking to Brice and David about how amazing. So you'll be able to go to all of our Telegram channels and see the link to that movie, because we can't mention it here. I was saying, I just want to back up everything you said on that, Medyhne. It's absolutely phenomenal. It was so good that even as a biologist, I'm going to re-listen to it several times because there's so much information there. But all I can say is from a medical perspective as well as other perspectives, it made complete sense. And it's so detailed and so well explained that we really, it is very important for people to share that far and wide. Didn't you think when you watched it, Medyhne, as well, that I think even people that are not conspiracy type people and things, because it's so well explained medically,
yes,
or factually, a bit like the movie you were talking about, Brice, and go to all our Telegram channels. You guys know how to find things now. That because these movie makers have done such a wonderful job, for me, the water one, you could share that with a lot of people that aren't necessarily on your wavelength, and I think they'd be hard pushed to argue with it.
Absolutely. And the biblical connotations, you know, the metaphysical biblical connotations of the snake and the serpent, you know, that is just such a metaphor for everything that we're going through at the moment, this fight, this spiritual war between light and dark, good and evil. And it just represents the whole thing perfectly. It all sort of, it's like all the puzzle pieces coming together and just starting to make the puzzle a whole, you know, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think also, I just want to say to people, when you watch it, it's not a fear-mongering thing. There's so many people out there, and we do a lot on all of our channels about helping people how you can empower yourself to be one step ahead with them by looking at what things you can do product wise and things to protect yourself from a lot of these. So for me, I didn't find it at all fear mongering. I just thought this is an absolute masterpiece and will go down in history along with a lot of the one that Brice is talking about. So I just really hope that anyone who watches it is encouraged enough to know there's lots and lots and lots of brilliant people there that are sharing information, however much they try and ban us, about what you can do to protect yourself against all these. So please know that there is those options out there, and don't lose.
Everyone is being encouraged at the moment to do that, Catherine. Like everyone that I'm talking to is saying, oh, I'm detoxing, I'm doing this with my body, I'm building my immune system in this way. And everyone's that I talk to is working on themselves. They're intuitively being guided from a higher, spiritual source to go in and work on their physical bodies and get clear and get strong and detox. And it's such a profound spiritual message coming through at the moment. So yeah, and you can see why when you see that movie.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, I just want to put a little disclaimer out. It is 6:20 in the morning here, and my dog is sleeping beside me, and he's a very loud sleeper, guys. He's a very loud snorer. He talks in his sleep all the time. So if you hear funky noises beside me, there's no one being held against their will here. That is literally Ravi just enjoying himself. So he's probably dreaming about being with Catherine in her beautiful yard chasing birds. So if you hear weird noises, that's him. So
love Ravi. So
speaking of conspiracy theories, that's literally him sleeping. So
there's so much exciting stuff coming out. Tell us about your experience then, Medyhne.
Wow, this is so exciting. So this lady who was had been a client, she contacted me and she said to me, Medyhne, she said, I have 3 white circles on my right arm, and I have like a trident shape. And she said, can I do a session with you so I can go in and look what they are, because they were sort of quite symmetrical on her right arm. And I thought, oh, okay. So we made a time, and then the next day I woke up and my right arm, I'm not kidding you, was really itchy. And I thought, oh my God, maybe a spider bit me in the night or something. That's what it felt like. So I look at my arm, I kid you not, 3 white circles and sort of like a long shape on my right arm. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that is so incredible. And I'm thinking, I'm feeling like it's a galactic type thing. So I go in a meditation, and I'm getting that it was, and then I checked with I've got quite a lot of big network of psychic friends. So I checked in with them as well. So what I got was that, there was basically this soft disclosure happening where it's like first contact, where we're going up into spaceships. So this was a bit like an implant or a QR type code. This is what I'm getting anyway, which was being used so that you could identify yourself going into this ship. And then I had a dream a few nights later where I had all these orbs surrounding me, and I was going into a ship. It was like a ship, a proper ship, but it was actually a spaceship. But at first it appeared as a ship, and it seemed interesting that they would use that because I love boats and ships, and I've worked on them and things like that. So, but I felt it was a spaceship, but it was presented as a ship. And so then I thought, wow, this is all, it's all coming together. And then I put a post about all this on my channel, and please go there and check this post out. And all these comments of people having similar experiences of going to ships now, in their sleep. And also, there was a few people that mentioned the dots that they had on their arm and hand as well. So, often when you experience something, you experience it because the collective is also experiencing it. And so you are just going through that experience with a lot of other people. And so when I posted it, I wanted to see if I got that sort of response. And I certainly didn't. I got people messaging me, and I got lots of comments of people having similar experiences. So I just feel like this disclosure is really starting to power up now. It's really starting to amplify with our galactic cosmic family. And So this was also another interesting, was it healed really quickly on my hand. That's another sign too, when it heals super quickly, that the itchiness and everything went away very quickly, and the marks. And I also had a very small symmetrical shaped oblong with little dots in it as well, that looked like an imprint. So and it felt benevolent. So if anyone out there saying, oh no, this is not good, this is not scary, it did feel like a benevolent thing. It felt like a positive, beneficial thing. And it felt like I was in some kind of potentially training, that sort of thing. And we are told that, this is happening. And also there's a thing about the orbs of light that are coming down at the moment on the planet. And I was meditating, and my spiritual team said to me, they said, tell people out there to tell all the institutions in the world with children, all the educational facilities, to call in the orbs of light to work with the children and to protect the children. So I got this really powerful message that the orbs of light need to be called in to work with the children at this time. And so there's so many pictures now of photos of people with orbs and everything as well. So they're also coming down more and more. And of course, we know with crop circles, they often identify that there are these orbs helping to create these crop circles. Many people mention that. So just all these fascinating things that have been happening in the last few weeks.
Medyhne, that just gave me chill bumps, because my Mystery Monday from yesterday was about the public school system and some urban legends about entities being seen. And I actually did half of it with my friend Stephanie, who pulled cards. And basically the bad guys had been placing these, we'll say institutions, because that's what they are, on particular ley lines to harvest. And so it makes sense that now they're trying to clear that with children with I'm trying to talk around certain words, guys, but I will link that in my channel, the link to that video down below as well, because that literally was what we covered yesterday, was what's happening with children, with energies, and bringing in nefarious spirits and off-worlders from the past now being rebalanced, possibly with healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really great to hear that confirmation. And that's the other thing, all these synchronistic things that are aligning now and coming together to for us to all unify and join. And the other really powerful message with this is the unification of humanity is the primary thing at the moment. Just releasing all division on all levels and just unifying and that's just a key component of everything that's come through in the last 2 weeks as well. So yeah.
Wow, David, you've been having quite a few things recently. Does that, experiences, should we say, does that link into anything that you've been feeling?
It's hard to say. I mean, maybe. I did. Janine did a reading for me around the blood noses and stuff, and she did say that it had something, connected to off-worlders, and originally when I was younger, the bad ones got me, but then I got rescued by the good ones, and it could have something to do with some of the experiences I've had over the last year and also more recently. But I don't know. I've had a few different people say a few different things about that entity that I have. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's a negative one. But I do, it's kind of up in the air at this point.
Yeah.
About what that could have been. Yeah. It was grabbing my feet last night. I was trying to grab my my feet. So yeah.
I'm lucky because I just got Idris in bed with me last night, and no one would get past Idris because he's so protected. He's just the best little spirit animal ever. Well, all my animals are, but he was just snuggled up and keeping everything at bay. So it is fascinating, isn't it? And I think it's just really, I was having a chat with Steph from Spiritual Perspectives, Brice's best friend, yesterday, and we were discussing a lot of things for the animals, and it's quite an interesting thing, isn't it? Because as someone who works with animals and have been working with animals for so long, which doesn't mean that I'm not still learning masses every single day, but I think it's fascinating just on what you said there, David. It's like, Medyhne, that experience and you can feel what it means for you. And then other people are still like, I don't know. And I think that's really important to say to people, that's absolutely fine. just explore it and be curious. Don't worry if you don't know if it's definitely this or it's definitely that. Or, I mean, I've got a whole load of questions about ascension, because I was having a really fascinating conversation off camera with a really, really good energy healer friend that I know. And we were talking about this whole issue of ascension, because the thing is, okay, if we think that if it's our belief systems, which it might or might not be the people on the screen, that we've chosen to be here in this time, in this physical vessel, which we're calling our bodies, then the whole ascension thing about, sort of changing the vibrational sort of DNA, well, there's a whole load of spiritual communities that believe that ascension isn't happening as we're all talking about it at all, and then that actually,
like the crystalline thing, you mean?
Yeah, or in whatever way it means to people, like the crystalline thing, because that could be a diversion against keeping people grounded and in contact with Gaia and Mother Earth and things. And there's so many fascinating conversations to have around all these issues, because I think a lot of people, like you were talking about this earlier on a different matter, Brice, a lot of people put things across, and it might be their truth, but it doesn't have to be your truth. And don't worry if it's not your truth, because you might see things differently. And at the end of the day, we don't need to worry about it, because we're all going to find out one way or the other. But I thought that was really fascinating, because certainly that resonates with where I'm feeling at the moment. I'm like, well, actually, for me, grounding, being in the present moment and everything is really, really important to make the most of this current life I'm in this current physical body.
I agree. We need to honor one another's differences, and if we have different perspectives on things, and that's beautiful, because that's what makes us all unique. But my personal experience is that it's very much about ascension at the moment, personally, and also planetarily, and also Mother Gaia, and that's just my experience. So it's funny, because therefore I would draw in people, magnetize people who are having that same experience. And I've had so many people since I posted that Galactic post asking about, ascension, and I'm actually running ascension classes. So at the moment, just because I've been requested to, just with some beautiful ascension techniques and information about, how you can work on your own evolution, which is it's really self-transformation. It's transmutation of energy. It's becoming more embodied in light, transmuting our shadow aspects. It's not a sort of really complicated thing, really. It just means that we're becoming more light filled, and we're raising our frequency vibration and becoming more enlightened and wise, and being the best aspect of who we truly are, at reaching our highest potential as a soul. And I think we are all inherently doing that anyway by being here at the moment, because we're on such an accelerated course at the minute with the transition of the planet, that you can't really but help shift energetically and change through this whole process that we're going through. And it is, I believe, for really everyone, except for a small percentage of the really dark beings, it really is about us through this opportunity, really transmuting all the things that no longer serve us.
I think the biggest thing I've noticed, and my life outside of you for the past 15 years has been studying old spiritual faiths, the Upanishads, the Vedas text, like going to India and really, really honing in on the philosophy. The one thing I've noticed that's troubling me is I think people are really confused. I like, Medyhne, how you focused on the transmutation of the shadow side, because I think the one thing that a lot of people are really missing, and it's getting into some delusion, is that sometimes the darkness that we have to walk through isn't coming from anything exterior. It's coming from our own selves. And that's what we call karma. And karma is just your work. It's what you have to work through. And I've noticed a lot with people who've been in contact with me, that anything that they're dealing with, like abandonment, shame, guilt, all these things, they're now projecting that onto somebody else's fault. And part of true spirituality and the true spirit, in order to ascend into this more enlightened state of being, you have to descend first. You have to hit rock, not
absolutely.
bottom, actually go down into the base of who you are as a human. And we see that again with the old system of Prakriti being nature, Purusha being the soul, Ishvara being God. Purusha, your soul, and your nature, your Prakriti, are literally two different things existing in one. And the Prakriti, the nature of yourself, is an expression, it's a Shakti of the soul. And the soul is without limitation. The soul is pure consciousness. And so these feelings we have, these emotions that we have as humans, are super important into us then understanding the limitness of this, the non-limitation of the soul. And the one thing I'm seeing people do, and it's really bothering me, is that they're trying to ignore that in order to go over here. And that's considered derangement and delusion. You know, it's like I've been saying a lot. I know we talked about this, David, like everybody's so focused on like the Trumps or the Kennedys. You know, I was telling Catherine, I'm getting really, really, really annoyed at people assigning us truthers to be some famous person that we're not. This is delusional. This is derangement. Instead of focusing so much on that, we've already learned a good deal of what got us to this place. We've learned it. We've put it into our system. We've sat with it. Now it's time to work on you in order for you to then change. That's the alchemy. Our friend Shanti talks about that all the time. That's the alchemy of transformation, is to take the lead of you, the heaviness of you, you know, the anxiety, the fear, the shame, the guilt, and actually sitting in that and owning it as yours and not putting it off on someone else, not owning it as something that you know, I talk about a lot, like my father left when I was a teenager, you know, that's a common for people to have like daddy issues, abandonment issues, right? But the fact that my dad did that really has nothing to do with my dad. Yeah. It's now my responsibility to work through that. And I have for a long time. I've worked through that because that was a karma I agreed to take on in order to better understand my soul. And so I would really encourage, and I loved how you said that, Medyhne, integrating the shadow, because that's what that is. That's the shadow. And so many people, you know, and I think people are confused too. Stephanie and I have talked about this. Divination is not spirituality. It's just communication. It's a gift people have to channel, yes, but it's spirituality is actually working on you without anything, just raw being with you. You know, and I think a lot of people are confusing. They're still projecting, when you're looking at the cards or the board, you're still projecting the essence of who you are on something outside of yourself, which everything's inside of you.
I think that the gift that we're being given at the moment with everything that's going on, there's so much information about just one topic. You've got 100 different opinions on one topic. And the gift of that is exactly what you're talking about, Brice, which is that we are being forced to go within now to finances, because you can't get, you know, you talk to 10 friends and they'll all say 10 different things. So we're really being pushed energetically to learn how to go within to discern what the truth is, because we have the truth within us, as you say, and it's universal consciousness, divine knowledge, divine consciousness. And now we really, if we want to be centered and stable in our energy and have a strong foundation, we can't be externalizing how we feel about the world right now. We have to go within. So it's really pushing everyone to just center, close their eyes, and just ask what the truth is and what the answers are for you. And that's something that is a gift that's been given to us at the moment because of the way the world is so chaotic and there's so much going on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, David, you said that in one. I loved it. You said this is the resistance. You have to have resistance. We talk about that in yoga. You have to have resistance in order for there to be a shift and a change, a friction created. And when friction is created, a spark is created. And you already are that spark. But that spark has to happen in order for you to, if everything's hunky-dory and just moving along, sorry, he's being very loud.
You don't do anything.
Yeah. You're exercising. Do weights. It's resistance.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just think it's really important that people sort of do this, because there's a lot of people sort of pushing their view of the world out there, and that's absolutely fine, because people can choose to listen to it or not. But I also see a lot of confusion when other people are feeling other things and different things and have questions. Just to encourage people, it's absolutely fine to question. It's absolutely fine to ask these questions and sort of explore it from things that you're seeing. Just because someone tells you it has to be a certain way doesn't mean that's your way or your lesson or your journey at the moment. So it's just something I've seen quite a lot in people and things. And I think it's just all about people being confident to learn and sort of really just keep working on what resonates with you, take what resonates with you, and leave what doesn't, and don't bash the messenger. And I just think that's really, really important, because
conflict resolution skills, they're so necessary right now. We haven't had to deal with this before too much in the past, because people would just the issues weren't so life-threatening and so important that we had this topics where we have sometimes diametrically opposed beliefs on really key issues that we're very passionate about, and you have to learn ways to work together on that. And it's like a form of conflict resolution that we now are addressing all the time with people. There's all sorts of differences where we have to work out how we can navigate that and still keep the love, that we have for the other person, or the connection that we have with the other person, and not let that damage the relationship, but be able to work through it. And that's really a thing that so many people are needing to work on at the moment.
Yeah. And we can't allow, I think what's happening too, it's a little bit scary. It's like we're changing, a lot of people aren't changing the formula. They're just changing the product, in the sense that they're still relying on somebody else to do the work for them. They're still relying on somebody else to tell them what the truth is. And they're treating some of us truthers like the new CNN or the new MSNBC. And, I think that's great. Listen to people, but take everything you hear, even from us, with a grain of salt, because you have to use your critical thinking skills as well, because we weren't using our critical thinking skills, and that's how we got in the mess we're in now, and so we have to and as I said earlier, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So even if you're following, no one is immune to that. Yeah. And so we have to be careful as humanity not to put people, we can respect people for their work, absolutely, but not to idolize people, because then we're getting back into danger. That's a red flag, like we were in before. Then we just got a new Dr. F, I'm not going to say his name, but with a different face and a different name, and so we have to start to go deep inside. And if something, I was listening to this podcast, and they were talking about this experiment. I don't remember what the experiment was called. It's done years ago. And they had 6 participants in this experiment, and 5 of the participants were in on it, and the one was not. And so they would put something on the board, like 2 apples, and they would ask every single participant, how many apples are there? So the first 2 rounds, all 5 participants would say 2 apples or 3 bananas. And the last one would agree, yes, there are 2 apples on the board. But then in the 3rd round, they would put 4 apples on the board. And all the 5 participants who were in on it would say, oh, I see 6 apples there. Even though there were only 3 or 4, even though the number was different on the board, but the fifth participant would just say what they said, because they started doubting, because what they were seeing was not what they were saying. And so they just went with what they were saying. And it was incredible to listen to them talk about this experiment they were running, that these 5 people knew they were giving the wrong number. But this one just started not trusting himself because of what they said. And that should be a lesson to all of us. I hope that makes sense, the way I paraphrase that experiment. But I can't remember what the experiment was called. If somebody can remember it, please put it in the comment section, because it was an interesting, that kind of shows what happens. So even with us truther, if there's a truther people idolize and love, and all these people are praising them, saying that this person's great, they're lionizing them, hero worshiping them, and one person is like, wait a minute, something's not sitting right with me with the information they're giving. Stay with that feeling that you're feeling. If something doesn't feel right, stay with that. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're wrong because everybody else disagrees with you.
I heard a theory on that.
Can I just bring David in, Medyhne?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. just keen to hear what David thinks about all that.
Yeah, I think especially in this community, things can travel so fast, and who knows where the real source comes from, right? And it gets shared, and it gets shared, and it gets shared, and quite often you might get the same thing from 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 different people, and then you go, okay, there's enough people for me to go, yep, that's what it is. But really, it's the same information. I think the real truth is that we don't know what the real truth is, and we may never know what the real truth is until it's there's an element of having that hard evidence, but there's also an element of not an element. It's just trusting your intuition, really. And even if it seems to be legit, like the mainstream media seems to be legit, it's all BS anyway. So
yes, I heard a theory on this that was fascinating, which is that people have different, obviously, DNA. And so the ones that have more cosmic DNA from other realms, who haven't spent as many lifetimes here on Earth or haven't been here as much, often they have, it's like they've got a clearer DNA. And so they can ascertain when things are not true because their DNA doesn't align with it. So I just thought that was a really interesting theory. And it does explain on some level why some people will just go along with the program and just believe everything they're told. And other people just inherently won't do that. So, yeah, it could be DNA.
I think also...
Have you guys seen...
David.
Sorry. Have you guys seen that? It's a similar kind of experience to mine. You were mentioning, Brice, where there's maybe 20 people or something, or 15 people in a doctor's office, and they do that ding noise, and then everyone stands up when they do it, and when they sit down, and this person comes in and is like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh," and she starts doing it, and she gets really into it, and then she's the last person, and by the end of it, because everyone else is in on it except her, and by the end of it, they bring another person who's not in on it. And they do the ding, and she stands up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, they were just doing it before." And so they start doing it together.
We see that a lot, don't we? We've seen that with all this issue and everything. And I think the other thing, going back to what you were just mentioning about using your intuition and everything, is the other thing I'm still seeing, which really, really concerns me, actually. And Brice, you and I have talked about this loads, about are people just swapping YouTube and BitTube for MSN, BBC, etc. There's so many sources of information out there for people, which is absolutely brilliant. Yes, there is still a lot of censorship, but people are very creative about finding ways around that. But equally, and it goes back to sort of the fact that we were all talking about the work is always within us all as individuals, because just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you need to spend a lot of energy then slagging them off and getting other people to agree with you. And I find that for me, it's like a classic displacement behavior, because again, it's like, what triggers is that? What shadow side is that raising in yourself? And everyone's here to perform a different role. Everyone on the planet, every being has got their own unique journey, their own unique role, their own unique lessons to learn and everything. And we're all going through things at our own pace in terms of what's right for us as individuals. So I think it's really important for me that everyone as an individual questions, am I contributing something on a positive way that's moving us forward, or am I taking us back into the negative behavior that we're trying to move away from? And again, I can understand it's frustrating, and I can understand everyone wants to get their opinion across, and I can see that, but it's like, is it constructive? Is it moving things forward, or is it bringing the vibration and the energy and the behavior patterns back down again to something you don't want?
Where they say opinions are like assholes, everyone's got one, like you have to remember, a lot of times this is speculation and opinion based on, I know our friend Stephanie, she talks about this a lot when she does her tarot reading, that even when she's reading the cards, any reader is coming to the channeled information from their own life experiences, whether they're conscious of it or not, and their own perception of truth. And so that's why even with divination, you always have to take it with a grain of salt. You always have to take what resonates and leave the rest, because even the reader themselves, I know a lot of people will say that, I know in my life that channeling is the least reliable form of divination, because it is coming through a filtered perception of a human. And so you have to take it all with a grain of salt. Even things like the raw material, you have to always take a little bit with a grain of salt, because it doesn't mean that the entity giving you the information was mistaken. It's meaning that the filter it's coming through was coming through the mind of a human. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. And it might not be that the information is wrong at all. You just have to understand that it's coming through the eyes of the person we all have perception. Our reality is our perception. And that is so, I just really hope moving forward that humanity as a whole takes responsibility, first of all, for themselves. And then second of all, when they're presented with a subject, doing their own research and really experimenting with their own feeling and gut feeling with how they feel about something and a decision being made. I mean, my dad told me a story once when he was in veterinary school that they gave the whole class medicine, and half the class got like the real medicine and the other half got a placebo, a sugar pill, but they didn't know who had what. And it was an experiment to see what people would write down the symptoms that they were feeling. And a lot of the people who got the placebo were experiencing symptoms that would not have been caused by the placebo because they thought they had the real pill.
Yeah.
So it shows you how the mind can actually create delusion depending on what the mind wants to believe.
Absolutely. That's so, it's brilliant. I love all that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been many instances.
Good day.
Sorry, yeah, there have been many experiments like that, or just, and even not experiments. Like I heard a story about a woman who was flying. She was allergic to some sort of flower or something, and when she found out that the plane that she was flying in was about to fly over her old town or her old city where there were loads of this flower, she started developing these symptoms, and she was, really high up. Then it turns out they didn't even fly over it anyway. And so, yeah, it's insane that how powerful the mind is.
I think it's also where you're being emotionally triggered, looking whenever you have a reaction to something, it's looking at the core reason of, why you were triggered, and going back to the healing aspect of that, of why you're triggered, and then healing it, and then looking at it that way. It's maintaining a level of, I guess, neutrality. You can still be in unconditional love, but you can be, neutral with things. And when you're not neutral, and when you have a strong reaction, it's really examining why that is. And, the masters were able to maintain that level of neutrality with everything. And that's really what we're aiming for. It's really interesting because I've been working with the Hawkins scale of consciousness. I don't know if you know that. And just looking, but it's fascinating because they say that if somebody holds the resonance of 500, which is love, they can impact 750,000 souls by just holding that resonance. And then you go up to the scale of enlightenment, which is, the highest level is 1,000. And then you multiply, that would be impacting millions of people by people being able to maintain, neutrality and those sort of ascended master type characteristics, which more and more people, I feel that there are many people out there that are starting to really embody these things. And I feel, I've got some incredible, all you wonderful friends and all my other friends, just people that have amazing abilities and gifts. And so I think we are getting there in many ways. And I'm seeing people embodying these things, which is really exciting.
How much with what's going on at the moment, because I agree with all of that, Medyhne, and it is really exciting. There's so much good news coming out at the moment, but there's also a lot of day-to-day realities that people are having to live with. And what's really obvious still is there's still huge discrepancies across the globe in terms of what rules and regulations are where individual people work and live, and how easy it is to people get out there. But do you think with all this sort of awareness and the community that we've been in of exploring and finding out all this information, do you think people have lost sight of the need to actually be in and enjoy and have gratitude for the present moment and live their lives?
Yeah, they're so getting distracted with everything. They're just constantly wanting to. I feel that sometimes myself. I have to say, no, Medyhne, not on your phone now. Leave the phone, and just step away and just not be, because that is a real thing that's happening at the moment, that you just want to see the latest information, because also we're waiting for the shoe to drop. We're waiting for this, thing that shifts everything forward in a positive way. And so there's that real, it's like an addiction for some people, that they've just got to be up with all the latest news all the time. I see that a lot, and on their phones all the time. So that's very much a bit of a problem at the minute, I think, with everything.
It goes back to the whole old saying, misery loves company. And it kind of circles back to what we were just talking about, working on the self and projection. And sometimes people get kind of addicted, I think, to drama. They need something to stress about.
Very much. And struggles.
yeah, they're not comfortable just being with themselves. And I think sometimes what happens as well is we all, I know for myself, I mean, it's going to take me, Guruji used to say, 1 month, 2 months, 10 years, no use. Whole life practice. Whole life is your practice. You never finish working on yourself. I know for me, if there's an issue I'm dealing with, or like a trigger that's come up for me that I know I need to sit with, instead of being uncomfortable and sitting with it, I'll turn to my phone, or I'll turn to another dramatic event that's outside of myself to put my focus on as a projection to not work on me. And I'm not saying that people don't need to keep up with the news. Of course, we need to keep up with what's going on, but to be mindful of the fact that sometimes misery loves company. Sometimes in this very friction resistant time period we're living in, where we're being forced to get uncomfortable, we're doing this subconsciously to not deal with our own crap. We're going to make it somebody else's fault.
Yes.
Escapism, absolutely, 100%. And so I would really encourage people, when they feel the need to pick up their phone, or, I mean, a lot of times when we were growing up, we had it the best because we didn't have escapism as much, because we didn't have a lot of distractions. We had to use our imagination. We had to play. We had to work out our issues with our friends ourselves, And so I would just really encourage people that when you find yourself getting addicted to social media, to following, when you're frustrated because a new YouTube video hasn't come out, sit with that for a minute. Go outside in nature and leave your phone in the car, and just let yourself be a human. Let any cry if you have to cry. Really let yourself move through your own stuff, because that stuff is not going to go anywhere. It's stored energy in your body. It's not going to go anywhere until you allow it to go somewhere. So, yeah.
Have a whole day off your phone, like a fast.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like we spoke about, I think last time, about we all need that time to integrate. So I've been spending a huge amount of time doing my gardening and planting my vegetable garden and things like that, because it's that time of year. And I've noticed that by switching the stuff off and actually having that integration time, it's been really amazing in terms of a lot of new awareness has come to me in all sorts of different areas. And it's that integration time where you do the work. I was speaking to this amazing lady last night about this through her dog, actually. And it's like, you've done so much work, everyone, over the last few years. And each person will have their time when they need to then take themselves off and then integrate everything and then tune in with what they're feeling. And then they come back at a much greater level of it, understanding. And it's certainly been working for me on a personal level.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's kind of like, sometimes we even think, I was talking to a friend yesterday about repetitive patterns in relationships. And we see this a lot with ourselves and with our friends. When you see, especially girlfriends, you'll see your girlfriend dating basically the same guy over and over and again. The same issues are coming up over and over and again. Well, those issues are really stemming from the common denominator. And so, that's a good reflection, a mirror back to, and we can see that with our friendships, with our relationships, with our community, with ourselves, of what inside of us is trying to get that attention. And in order for us to have a healthy relationship with anyone, be it a romantic partner, a friend, our family, our community, whatever, we have to be balanced within ourselves. We have to take that accountability to work on our own mental and emotional health. We can't put that off on somebody else.
Are you guys seeing much in your local area? So one thing that I'm really interested in is the community aspect, because we talk about community a lot and we've sort of got our online community. But what are you seeing? Are you seeing anything, David, in your local area and things changing on a community level at all?
I've seen maybe 2 people not wear muzzles when they go to the supermarket or something, and that's about it. Yeah, I don't know. We don't have much of a community, to be honest, where I live. It's really I said this to you last time, Catherine, it's the bigger the community, the smaller the community, in many ways. And where I live, I just don't feel like there's much sense of a community, unfortunately. It may unfortunately take, touch wood, a real disaster, to bring people together.
Yeah.
because the current one's only dividing people. You know.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? It's an interesting scenario. What about you, Medyhne? What are you noticing?
I totally think people are really starting to focus on how can I build community or how can I be part of a community that aligns with who I am. It's a little different, I think, Dave, to where you are. I feel a lot of people are talking about it and they're wondering how they can put these communities together, practically. I think we've had some triggers here that you haven't had in Perth, which have been, the floods and that, one of the insurers was saying to a friend of ours that went through the floods, it was literally the worst disaster that had ever happened in Australia, that for a long, long, long time, these floods, people don't realise how severe the first flood that went through, about 6 weeks ago was here in this part of Australia. And so when that sort of thing happens, it really does galvanise people to think about how they can, work together. We're starting to think about things like food shortages. So how can we, maybe come together and grow our own foods, and how can we have different skills that each of us needs so that we can all mutually come together and have all the skills that we need in a community within the community. And so I think it is triggering subconsciously and consciously in many, many people this feeling of wanting to be in communities and being with their spiritual tribe. Definitely, I'm feeling that very strongly.
What about you, Brice?
Well, you said something that I was thinking about yesterday with Stephanie, and you said this to me as well. I think for us, as human beings, everything comes down to our intention in life, and that is something you can't hide by words. Like you talked about with dogs. If I tell Ravi, my dog, to sit, he doesn't know who to sit. He just knows what I'm asking him to do because of my vibrational intention, right? And so the two yoga shalas where I still teach, both of these yoga shalas have never once complied. They didn't go out and make any statements about it. Neither one put anything on social media. They just kept doing what they were doing. They just kept teaching classes as normal. And at this point, these are the only two yoga shalas that are probably going to survive. All of my classes are packed. At AYA, there's waiting room only now for some classes. My last course is coming up starting May 1. And before we even advertised it for a while, because I'm going to take a break, it had already basically sold out. And we don't, both of these shalas, we don't say anything. We don't talk about the flu. We don't talk about this. We don't talk about anything. We just stand in our integrity. None of my students care that I adjust them. They don't care if I'm breathing on them. But just by holding that truth within yourself and knowing what your boundaries are, it's going to bring in people that are also aligned with you. And it took a while. It did. I know for both shalas, there were scary times when are we going to survive? But the integrity of standing in truth meant more than survival of the business. And now it's turns out people don't like showing paperwork when they go take a yoga class, and so regardless of whether they're where we are as far as understanding or not, it's vibrationally bringing in that community. And we've had, especially at AYA, we've had countless students get emotional and thank us for not making anything weird, for just being normal. Just giving them a place of normality. Now, with that being said, I am in the state of Georgia, and Georgia is a very conservative state. Even though I'm in Atlanta, Atlanta is a liberal city, but it's still very conservative compared to London or New York or Philadelphia. Philadelphia just reinstated this for inside. And so, and outside of Atlanta, you won't see this at all anywhere. I'm heading down to Florida tomorrow, and Florida is just live your life. Florida's live and let live, right? It's so it does depend on, I think, where you are in the world about what. I feel sorry for people who are in London or New York or who are like us, because I can imagine that.
London's never been bad. London's never been bad.
Then New York, I know New York.
I thought it was really bad. People
London's never been bad. I mean, we've never got to the stage where we've had to have a passport to go in somewhere or something. It's never got to that stage in England.
Wow.
It has in Scotland and places, but it hasn't been things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting about how this is one thing I find is people's perceptions and realities are really, really different. And going back to the community, I mean, I probably live in sort of the smallest place out of all of you. I don't quite know with Medyhne, but so where I am, I'm the only person around here that thinks like I do about what's going on and things. However, the sense of community is really, really strong. So like one of the elderly neighbours has just died recently and everyone's rallying together and helping. And when we had the storms, everyone rallies together and helps and everything. So what I find really fascinating, particularly with what you were saying, Medyhne, about, you know, we've been told the whole way through this by the 17th letter of the alphabet, everything, that you can't tell people, you have to show them. And whether you're listening to Joe Dispenza, whether you're listening to whatever, there is a lot about human nature that has to wait for some sort of tragedy, disaster, things to hit rock bottom to take action. But what I find really fascinating is, even though no one in my immediate vicinity, I have got friends sort of a little drive away that are very much talking about the things that we're all talking about, but no one in my immediate little community would agree with anything that I think about this or that. But the whole way through, we've never seen each other with these on, because we're all in the middle of the countryside. So even the people that completely believe in it and would wear one shopping we've never seen anyone locally with one of these on, because we're all walking around doing our horses and walking our dogs and out in our garden and things like that. Now, if I bumped into them in the supermarket, they'd all be wearing this, but I've never seen them locally. But what has really struck me recently, because we've had nothing like you've had, Medyhne, but we've had the storms and we've had deaths of people and we've had other people have other things that have meant they've really need to come. Everyone's there like that. Everyone's really there like that. So even though in that respect, like what you all say about your vibration, our belief systems about certain issues haven't affected the stepping into help at all.
That's lovely. Great. Yeah.
It's really lovely to see, and it's really made me appreciate a lot, because they all think I'm mad, because I've had quite a few discussions with some of them about this and about this, but then they'll all come to me for herbal solutions and things, or if their animal's ill, or if they've got something and they're feeling ill after this, like, well, have you got anything to help? But it's not, it's really special to see how when you're living in these remote areas, and I'm not that remote, I mean, I'm only an hour on the train from London, but we're very much not in a town or a thing, you know, we're all spread out. It's beautiful to see how people are helped step in and help each other without even needing to be asked when something's needed.
There was somebody said this a while ago, and I'm going to be careful about how I say this. You know, people, the big tragedy of my life before 2020, of my generation, was the thing that happened in September, I'll just say the early 2000s, just to be careful. You guys know what we're talking about. And somebody said, you know, I don't want the America that existed before that event. I want the America that existed the day after that event. Because I was about to leave, actually, to head off to England when that happened, and living in a city and being here and watching people hold each other, watching all of a sudden people weren't Democrats or Republicans, they weren't black and white or Latin or Asian, they weren't men and women. Here in America, it gets me emotional. The day after that, you saw American flags flying everywhere, and people were literally, all of a sudden, none of the details mattered, because we were all Americans and we came together. And that it was through that tragedy, there was such a beautiful coming together of human beings. And it's sad that it had to take that tragedy for us to remember how to love each other. But you're right. Sometimes when something like that jolts us, all the details, it's like when you lose somebody that you love to death.
That's what I was going to mention too. I had a little baby that passed at birth, and I tell you, it opened so many hearts at that moment. You know, people would be crying and releasing tears that they'd held all their life, and just opening their hearts, and to see people in such a space of unconditional love through that experience, even though I was a mother, was incredibly beautiful and touching. It was really poignant, actually. Yeah. beautiful. And I will say too that, you know, there is on the 18th of April, you know, there is potential for, you know, the people have talked about a possible thing happening in, I think, New York too, with, I can't say the word, but flapping, one of those things, you know. So, you know, it's good for people to remember that too, that those sorts of things can also really create situations where people learn how to really love and open their hearts.
Yeah, and let's hope that we're evolving enough as humanity. Has made me cry now. Can't we talk? Oh, would you? I just want to give you a big hug for that. But yeah, I just want to say, you know, I just hope that we're learning enough so that we don't have to go to rock bottom and have something really horrendous happen to bring that together again. And I think that's why talking through things like this, for me, that's why I do it, because awareness just shifts everything. And, you know, I followed Ollie Damagard for years before any of this happened. He's one of the main people about the flappy things that aren't true, that has brought to awareness. And there's so many brave people out there that are really putting everything on the line to bring these things to our awareness. And the beauty is there's so many people across the globe that once you see these things, you can't ever go back to not seeing it, everything you look at. And that just gives me such hope. And I just hope we can all pull together and focus on the love and the similarities, and not worry about the difference of opinions. It just doesn't matter, so long as your intention, as you said, Brice, is in the right place. How you express that, let's not get hung up on those details.
I just wrote a manifesto of unity, actually, for my Patreon community, and I'm going to put it up on my site, and it's all different aspects of what unity really means. And I channeled it, actually. I got up in the morning and it just came through, and I'm really excited to share that with people, so I'll have that up soon. Yeah.
Any final words from you, David?
Yeah, I think you all touched on some amazing points there, and I think the interesting thing about that video where there's a possible thing that's going to happen in New York, when somebody puts a video out like that, it can quite often negate the thing from happening, stop the thing from happening, you know, because it's bring people's awareness to it. So let's hope that is the case, and that they keep bringing out videos that stop them, any future things happening as well.
We can all pray
it really is
for it not to happen, and send positive energy, so that might help. Sorry, Dave, keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Yeah. I hope that that information that gets out there to people will help to negate it, like you say. That will be, you know, exactly what we want to create energetically. And, you know, the power of your mind is so incredibly, it has so much impact. Thoughts that, for example, placing the ultraviolet purple flame around the planet can transmute planetary karma like you wouldn't believe. If you could see the effects of placing an ultraviolet purple flame of transmutation around the planet and see everything lifting off when you did that, if you could see that, you would be doing it all the time, you know, every day. And so just the power of our intention and our thoughts and our heart, the power of our love, the power of our heart is just what we need to really activate at this time. Yeah.
Treat your thoughts like they cost you $1 every time.
I love that.
Because you wouldn't waste any money on stupid negative thoughts, and you know.
We need to speak to Liz about a t-shirt for that, Brice.
I know, I always say don't believe everything you think, but I like that one better, because that one means that you actually have to give up something if you hang on to something. So yeah, we should talk to Liz about a t-shirt for that, because for sure.
It's so that just these little simple things are so great. Well, I found, I know, Brice, you're off on an Easter holiday, so have an amazing time on that. Thank you so much to all of you. I just always learn so much from these, and it just makes me think and about things and feel sort of different things. And yesterday on my dog walk, I found a swing in the woods, so I'm going to go off and play on the swing. It was so great. Yeah, I hope the children don't get cross with me. I didn't break it, so it was.
It wasn't there before.
No, and someone must have a very fit dad or something, or mum, that's on it, because it's really high up in a lovely pine tree, and it wasn't there. We've got so many beautiful walks around here, and I was out and I did a slightly different route yesterday, and then I found this swing. And it's the funniest thing is watching my dogs watching me on it, but it was so good. It was such good fun, just the rope with a bit of stick on it. And so I'm going to go and find the swing again and push the children off and get on it.
Y'all, my sister's golden retriever Reba loves the trampoline. She has videos. She puts videos. She'll look outside and Reba will be jumping on the trampoline. So go have fun with your swings and your trampolines.
I've got a friend who, she's a wildlife carer, and she had a kangaroo, and she taught it how to hold a basketball, and it would throw the basketball at this kangaroo. I wish I had the video of that. She used to have a video of it.
They just love playing with us humans. They love seeing us having joy and everything. They love, the cats quite often get on our trampoline. I mean, my children are young adults. I've still kept the trampoline for me. And often late at night, I love going out in the dark, healing all the owls and just bouncing up and down on my trampoline.
I love owls. I've got so many owl stories. I love owls.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Well, I hope everyone has a lovely Easter break, if that's something that you celebrate or have family times for, or anything. And thank you so much all for joining us, and for everyone making it at all the different times. Well, at least we've got diaries coordinated now. Take care, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.